Celtics Talk Podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. 11 locations across New England.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Celtics Talk Podcast here on the NBC Sports Boston Podcast Network. Sort of an emergency edition tonight as the Celtics on the travel day for All-Star Weekend make the switch. Joe Mazzulla promoted 19th head coach of the Boston Celtics, and as it was termed in the press release, replacing Ime Udoka as head coach. So a resolution there. We don't have a lot of details on that. Of course, the team probably isn't going to be willing to divulge much. It'll come out slowly in the wash, I bet. But the bigger story here is that Joe Mazzulla no longer has the interim tag, and maybe just a little bit easier to focus moving forward. So I had to go get my guy, Tom Giles, to break it down. Like, what do we think about this, and what do we think about the Celtics moving forward? And you also hear a little bit from Brad Stevens in this episode explaining exactly why the Celtics moved to do this when they did, because it is a little bit of curious timing. But let's start with why and how we're feeling about this. Let me go get Giles and talk about the promotion of Joe Mazzulla to head coach. All right, Giles. Joe Mazzulla, no longer interim head coach, full head coach of the Boston Celtics. How do you feel about that? What was your reaction?
I wasn't that surprised, honestly, when I saw the news come down, and I've heard.
I was surprised that you weren't surprised.
I don't know. I mean, we've had this conversation about what a remarkable job that he's done with this team, and I guess maybe you can look at the timing and say, like, well, why now? Why'd you decide to do it All-Star Weekend? I know you've got some thoughts on that, but what do you just consider what this team has done under Joe Mazzulla, who was kind of thrust into this role right before the season started, and they have the best record in the NBA. They're exceeding expectations. Their win projection was right around 55, maybe even 53 games. They're projected right around 58 plus right now. So all those things being considered, and the fact that he's had his starting five on the floor together for 29 minutes.
Brad's got really great information.
He did. We might have had that a couple nights earlier. Here's Chris Forsberg on Celtics.
That's okay. It's fine. We're all teamwork.
It is important to get the numbers in there.
What's funny is that it is jarring. Like, it's the first time when I looked it up, I said, that can't be right. And it was so funny. So I told Kevin Miller, one of our bosses, and he said, are you sure that's right? And I said, let me double check. And I checked it. And then Paul Lucy texted me and goes, hey, are these numbers right?
Yeah, it's staggering.
It doesn't sound possible, but to your larger point, Joe Mazzulla being able to, and I think that for me, it comes down to the start of the year. If we can hop in the time machine and remember how we felt on media day, when we're all sitting there, not only dreading having to ask all these questions about Ime and like the state of the team, but how down everybody was. Here's a season with so much promise and about, we're going to go back to the finals and, take that next step. And Jason and Jalen worked all summer to come back. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, now Joe Mazzulla is your coach? And like, how is this going to go? And it felt like things were very tenuous and like a couple bumps in the road early, and the wheels just could have popped right off. Instead, Celtics start like amazing, best record in basketball, and really haven't relinquished that.
Joe Mazzulla, by the way, is the favorite to win NBA Coach of the Year. Like that's the other thing too. Like, and I understand that's an award given to, usually someone that goes above and beyond what you projected, but he's also got that going for him.
And it's like if you told someone and like take away the circumstances, like, hey, the Celtics going to sign the favorite for Coach of the Year. How do you feel about that? And you'd be like, yeah, like that'd be a good thing, right? And so I don't think there's any reason to have consternation. We talked about it with Trendy on early edition. She was like, what's the rush? And I understand that. I think as Brad Stevens vocalized it, there was a desire to eliminate all distractions. And so one of Brad's biggest things since taking over for Danny Ainge has always been, how do I get my guys to focus on singularly the game of basketball and the goals of this team? So whether that's contracts, whether that's all the other stuff outside of basketball that might pollute their mind, he's always strived. So like he locks up Robert Williams, he locks up Marcus Smart. At one point he locked up Josh Richardson for an extra year, just so these guys don't have to sit there and think like, what's next?
And Brad also used a word, and I can't remember in what context it was, but he used the word earned, as in Joe Mazzulla earned this new title, which is just head coach of the Boston Celtics. Can I tell you what else I'm excited about relating to this?
Yes.
I struggle sometimes saying the word interim. It feels like there's 3 or 4 different ways you can say it, but also interim head coach Joe Mazzulla. It's just like it is too many words. So
now when you do your it's time for the coach's press conference, presented by Arbella, you can just roll that right up. You don't have to worry about the wording of it.
Yes.
And I'm with you because it's just cumbersome. And I've been asked probably a million times over the past 4 months, when are they going to remove it? When are they going to remove it? I actually had a question in the mailbag on Monday. Someone said, when are they going to remove it? And I said, why are you so worried about it? Like, if Joe's not worried about it, you shouldn't be worried about it. Well, evidently Brad was worried about it. So they move forward and they decide to just take that tag off. And so now, one of the things, as you alluded to, like I always have a conspiracy theory about like why people do stuff or whatever. My theory is two-part. One, like Joe had earned it, as you said, but there was something like Tuesday felt like a demarcation point. Going up to Milwaukee with nothing but the B team, -4 starters, 12 minutes of whatever it was for Raw, and still almost winning that game. I think that's when, like, there was never a doubt, but if it was like, I think Brad and Celtics brass sat there and said, okay, like, if the dude can do this, and based on what he's done the entirety of the season, he deserves that job. I think the other thing here is Joe Mazzulla's fault coaching. We don't know what team, like, he knows.
Team Giannis, he's coaching at the All-Star game.
He will be coaching Team Giannis, and he knows his players, even though they haven't drawn them yet. But they will go to All-Star weekend, and he's going to have media availability in 45 minutes, I think, after Saturday's practice. And that was invariably going to come up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, can you imagine if you're like an out-of-town reporter to be like, Joe, do you find it weird that you're the head coach of Team Giannis in an NBA All-Star game, but you're not the full-time head coach of your own team that kind of got you here?
And again, I think Joe would just be like, no, I'm just focused on my job. And, he would truck right through it. But Brad, who worries about these things, was probably like, the sooner we can do this and the sooner we can just eliminate that potential for distraction, the better. And so, like, and that could be twofold too. It could not only be tied to Joe, it could be like, what happens when the first time a coach gets fired right after the season? Because invariably, non-playoff teams will start making roster moves, and now Ime's situation props up. So I don't think the Celtics were ever, in a perfect world, going to get to June 30th before having to make that decision about like what's going to happen. We started already profit with the Nets. So to me, it got to the point where it was like there's a little low on the schedule. 60 games in, there's no reason to complain about what Joe Mazzulla has done. I will ask you, what grade would you give Joe Mazzulla?
I had this conversation with Eddie House on Celtics post game. He put me on the spot, and I was like,
you really did.
Yeah, I got A-, maybe B+, A-. Man, Eddie was not having that. He's like, just give me a grade. So
he's so mad about a B+. He's like, yo, man, just say an A-.
A- is the answer, by the way. Because as I started to think about it, just the way this team has exceeded expectations, the way he's done it with, largely with bench players for a big part of it. And you just look at where this team's headed as well. We have no questions right now. I mean, they're the NBA favorites, and Joe Mazzulla is the head coach. So all those things put together, that's an A-. The room for improvement is just like the conversations we have about the timeouts and the end of game situations, and
and that was the overall.
Maybe some of the one-word answers.
Yeah,
media, that kind of thing. Just the room for improvement there. But so far, I mean, given everything that you're looking at, it's exceeded expectations. A-.
One of the things that, as journalists, as like, and anybody gets caught up in this, we get so singularly focused on individual moments, whether it's late game timeouts, play calls, the way Joe answers questions, that we forget sometimes to like just take a step back and be like, look at the totality of what he's done. And when you do that, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, makes sense, So we can still get upset. We're still going to. We're still going to kill him when he like makes a bad decision or doesn't call a timeout or Grant dribbles off his foot and it becomes a problem. And yet he won't get credit when the play runs smoothly because Jason Tatum makes a jump. We go, oh, Jason Tatum's amazing. It's not nothing to do with Joe Mazzulla. So that's just the nature of coaching. But I do think Joe has earned it. He has his quirks.
What grade would you give him?
Well, I can't possibly go anything besides A-. But like, I get the point. Like, what more can you ask for him at this point? They have the best record in basketball.
Yeah.
And yet, sure, I think I've long said Joe Mazzulla will be graded based on what he does in the playoffs. Because that's the only way we have to grade coaches is, do they make decisions quick enough? Do they make adjustments in the series? We don't know those answers right now. We feel pretty good about what we've seen and the way he's led this team, but certainly it's just another level when you're going up against the Eric Spoelstras of the world, Doc Rivers.
That's absolutely true. Like, I remember, going back to last year's postseason, you looked at it, the Celtics won the coaching battle against Brooklyn. I think that was pretty clear. His second round against Milwaukee, I think they won the coaching battle against Mike Uno.
And I think Uno was pretty good, but like set in his ways.
But then once you got to Miami, Spoelstra gave you everything you could handle. And then once you got to Golden State, Steve Kerr, I think, won that battle. And that was part of the reason the Warriors prevailed.
So I'm interested. Like, I'm not going to say, like, based on what I've seen, I just know Joe's going to go into the playoffs and be great. I do think he'll put in the effort to address, like, why they maybe struggle in various facets. And he's, like, his work ethic is unrivaled. Like, we've heard stories about when he was in college, sleeping in a van next to the stadium because he wanted to get back to work the next morning so quickly. And, I know he puts in the effort, he puts in the work. And it's just going to come down to, can he make decisions quick enough? Like, one thing to not call timeout in an instance against Milwaukee in a regular season game that isn't the end all be all. It's another thing to do that in Game 7. So that's just what we got to wait and see.
I mean, you also have 23 games left in the regular season here, where you can kind of start to play with that a little bit. I understand, like, you need to lock down that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. There could be some games where you kind of, and maybe now he says, all right, well, now I'm going to start calling timeouts because it hasn't gone as well.
You want timeouts?
Yeah, now you're going to get them. It might even come, what'd you do? What'd you call timeout more? Like, that's how it always works out.
No doubt. How's it going? I like posting these videos.
Had a lot of fun, man. I've had a lot of fun, yeah. But Eddie House plays us, Celtics post-game plays us is one of my favorite things, but it's also because then we bring Forsberg in, and it's like the energy
goes up a little.
Oh man, it's awesome. It's awesome. But
I have the paint picture of this team. Like I am content with my role, and when I get my opportunities, I just try to bring a little flair, a little energy to it. Because like those post game shows can be, especially after losses, filling an hour and 20 minutes of like, hey, so what happened on the third quarter possession gets a little monotonous. But
yeah, well that's interim Celtics.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, don't pigeonhole yourself. You've been very good. You brought a good energy yourself.
You've
been ready.
Big shoes to fill, though, because Amina does a great job, and it was very cool. I mean, I'm sure people saw on social media, but she had the baby. Super Bowl. Deion Bush wins the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. So, cool week.
So if you could just go win, like, no pressure on your wife or anything, but if you could.
Right? Yeah. Well, that'd be a big year
reward.
Yeah.
So I don't know. No pressure, but
how
are you feeling about the potential for this team as we've seen?
I mean, look at the injuries and everything else. Like, at this point, you're going to see more of the starters on the floor in the final 23 games. I think everyone's circling March 30th. That's the big one against the Milwaukee Bucks. That's right, March 30th. By the way, Mark Hazel's birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. Celtics pre-post.
More reason to go to Milwaukee.
Yeah, one of our producers. So, yeah, just found that out today. Big birthday for him. So, that's a big one to circle. But, no, I think it's going to be a great stretch run, and I'm going to be very intrigued to see how it plays out. But I see the Celtics hanging on to this 1 seed. Having home court advantage.
All right. Well, it's All-Star break. Go rest up. Maybe
we'll do it. Yeah, you too.
And as soon as this podcast is done,
that's it. Yep.
Right to the airport.
All right, man.
Thank you, John.
You got it.
Look no further than the award-winning 24 Auto Group. With over 2,600 vehicles in stock, the brands you love, backed by the savings and service you can count on. Visit today or shop online at 24autogroup.com.
We're kicking off fall with big savings at State Line Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram.
Lease a new Ram 1500 for $369 a month during Ram Power Days.
Hurry in, and you'll be saying,
I got mine at State Line.
All right, I'm with Giles. Like, I not a surprise in the sense that I think we all knew that the Celtics were committed long term to Joe Mazzulla. The timing is a little bit unique to me, and so again, I just think it takes a little bit more of a distraction. Doesn't have to answer questions this weekend. Goes in with a little bit more swagger. Like, you're already the All-Star coach. I don't know how much more you could be feeling good about yourself, but certainly a little bit for Joe to feel comfortable and just kind of. Now he doesn't have to worry about the future, and he doesn't have to worry about anyone taking his parking spot or his office. And I don't think he was worried about that to begin with. But all the more focus these Celtics can have on what's ahead, the better for this team as a whole. Let's give a listen here. Here's a little clips from Brad explaining exactly why the Celtics made the decision to promote Joe.
Pretty obvious and evident about Joe is he's a really good coach, and he also is just a outstanding leader. I think he's done a great job right from the get-go of again, kind of like I said, galvanizing a locker room around a mission. And, and I give him a lot of credit. I give our players a ton of credit, and I give the staff a lot of credit. And, as far as the timing of it from the standpoint of this is, the one thing that they've obviously done a great job. They've obviously, put themselves in position to compete for the things we want to ultimately compete for thus far. And I want to give them the opportunity, to finish the regular season strong. Hopefully the postseason strong and not be, in a cloud of uncertainty, and I think that they certainly have earned that. And Joe specifically has just done a great job. I mean, he really has. He's always prepared. He's really driven. He does all of the work necessary, but he also has a pulse on, when it's, the work needs to be put aside for the people. And I think that, he really is, and again, he and his staff, but specific to Joe, has just done a great job. And so we were not only, really comfortable with it, we're also really excited about him leading us now and into the future. Benefit of anything in this role that I'm in now, it's about understanding coaches and hopefully being able to identify and support talented people. And we have a lot of them, and Joe's one of them. And so for me, it was I know Joe will work his tail off. I know Joe will give everything he has to lead. And I know he gives a damn about everybody in that locker room. Like, he really, really cares. It eats him up when something doesn't go well individually for a guy. It eats him up when, he feels like he's let the team down. He's not going to ever come in and say, I wish this person, or this person would have done their jobs better. He'll always say the opposite. And so, again, it goes back to, like, the idea of now going into the playoffs. We're gonna be in battles. Like, it's going to be really hard. The East is terrific. Obviously, the West is loaded up. Like, it's going to be really hard to win. And the hardest thing to do would be coaching, looking behind you and looking over your shoulder. It's about looking forward. And if you're in a game 7, like, know that everybody in the organization believes in you, and, that uncertainty is erased. Like, you've earned that. And so I thought that was really important.
All right. Now I think it's okay for you guys to take a couple days. I mean, Thursday, Friday. I mean, we got Jason Tatum in the 3-point contest on Saturday night, game on Sunday. Then we'll have a little bit of a lull. We'll be back with you next week. Games coming fast and furious. A big showdown with Philly on Saturday night next week. But All-Star Weekend, I need everybody to go rest up, recharge those batteries. There's been a lot of podcasts. I looked up the other night. I was like, post-game pod number 59. All these off-day episodes, like, we've been going crazy. Thank you all for sticking with us during this crazy season. We're excited to see what comes next, but it's only going to get better from here. Go like, subscribe, check us out on the YouTube page. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk Podcast.